No one in the courtroom was prepared for what came next. The audience leaned in, expecting a calm and composed statement as Keanu Reeves approached the stand. What they received instead was one of the most chilling testimonies of the entire trial. Reeves didn't raise his voice, he didn't cry, he didn't accuse. Yet the words he spoke carried a weight that shook the room. He described a private dinner in 2014, something that started as a quiet invitation from Diddy Combs, but quickly spiraled into something far more disturbing. Among the strange, ritual-like demands allegedly presented that night was one detail that left the room breathless. Before Keanu could be accepted, he was told he'd need to bathe in Diddy's, used bathwater. At first it sounded like a grotesque joke, but what followed made it clear this was no joke. According to Keanu, the invitation came while he was filming in Los Angeles, but it hadn't come from an agent, studio, or industry peer. It came directly and secretly from Diddy himself. The message was cryptic: private dinner, creatives only, no agents, come alone. The location: a secluded estate in the Malibu hills, not known for red carpets, but for its isolation. Keanu, ever curious but cautious, agreed. But from the moment he arrived, something felt wrong. No paparazzi? No valet. Just a single security guard who checked his ID, confiscated his phone, and stated flatly, no devices allowed. Inside, it felt more like a set than a home. Candles lined the floors, and soft ambient music flowed through hidden speakers. At the head of a long table stood Diddy, smiling. Delighted you made it, he said. No staff, no guests, just the two of them, seated in eerie silence. What unfolded wasn't dinner. It was, as Keanu later described, a slow descent into something that felt less like a meeting and more like an initiation. Diddy poured them both wine and spoke with clarity. Let's talk legacy. But it wasn't about movies, deals, or scripts. He spoke in symbols, power, secrecy, and the price of admission into a higher circle. No studios were mentioned, no contracts shown. Diddy instead described it as a transformational experience that changes you forever. In court, Keanu admitted he had never experienced a conversation like it, unnerving in its calmness. This isn't acting, Diddy said repeatedly. It's about changing who you are. The goal is to shine when no one's watching. Keanu first thought it was an immersive, avant-garde acting concept, but then Diddy leaned forward and said, to begin, you must prove loyalty. No press, no middlemen, just surrender. Then came the black folder, but instead of a pitch, script, or concept art, it contained a single sheet of paper. 7 bullet points. Keanu called it the Loyalty Framework Agreement. No logos, no WGA numbers. Just strange, ceremonial demands. Trust the process, even in darkness. Speak of this to no one. You'll be reborn by dipping your feet into the sea. Do not question. If you want money, leave now. You must be cleansed. Loyalty endures forever. Keanu asked, is this a film pitch, or something else entirely? Diddy smiled. You asked too much, Keanu. That's why I chose you. You still question. Something in Keanu's guts screamed danger. He'd seen intense methods, strange directors, eccentric producers, but never anything like this. Diddy claimed. The project had no title. Titles don't matter. Credits don't matter. The ones who finish it, they understand that. Keanu's resistance grew. He asked for clarity. That's when Diddy's tone dropped. You want a script? I'm offering you transformation. Then he slid a small black stone across the candlelit table. Bring this with you to the bath, he said. Once you enter, you'll never be the same. When Keanu asked what the bath meant, Diddy leaned in again, whispering, it's the second part of your initiation. The water connects us all. Water holds memory. That's why it matters who you bathe with. Keanu testified that Diddy described a bizarre and deeply unsettling cleansing ritual, one that, to this day, still haunts him. There was nothing metaphorical about it, nothing symbolic. You'll join me next time, Diddy said. Bring the pebble. You'll step into the puddle I stepped out of. I'll know you're ready when you do. The courtroom audibly gasped. Keanu stared at Diddy for what felt like an eternity that night. I thought maybe he was joking, or trying to humiliate me. But he wasn't. He was completely serious. He testified. Diddy refilled his drink, and asked one last time, are you in? Keanu said nothing. He stood, thanked him for the dinner, and left. As he reached his car, he found his phone sealed inside a black envelope. Inside was a small gold-embossed card. It read, loyalty is tested in water. He never replied, and he never returned. But after that night, his career began to shift. Offers slowed, projects vanished. Trusted producers stopped calling. I can't prove it, Keanu told the court. But everything changed after that bath was mentioned. At first, Keanu tried to dismiss it all, a strange encounter in Hollywood, a bizarre dinner that would fade into memory. But at DIDN single quotes D. According to his testimony, something began to shift around him. Not loud, not visible, but real, like a shadow always moving just out of sight. 3 days later, at exactly 3:17 a.m., his home phone rang. No number, no voice, just static. Then, a long, slow inhale, deliberate and controlled, then silence. Keanu assumed it was a prank, until it happened again. And again, in the next 2 weeks, 5 more calls came in. Always at night. Always from blocked numbers. Always the same breath, followed by eerie quiet. He began noticing unfamiliar cars parked outside his home, not once, not twice, but regularly. One evening, as he pulled into his garage, he found a black envelope wedged beneath his windshield wiper. Inside was a sheet of parchment-like paper. On it, a message. Unfinished rituals have consequences. It was signed with a single letter, S. No return address, no watermark, no trace. Keanu admitted in court that the experience rattled him. Still, he tried not to jump to conclusions. He turned to his longtime agent, a friend he trusted. The agent's advice: blunt. If you didn't sign anything, and you didn't speak, forget it ever happened. But then came the warning. Some people don't like to hear no, especially when they think you belong to them. Keanu tried to move forward. He had a new indie film lined up, a promising mid-budget project that investors loved. But just days before filming, the funding mysteriously vanished. No explanation, no replacement, just gone. A major franchise cameo already discussed, nearly signed, was abruptly canceled. Not recast, just erased. At first, Keanu blamed timing, bad luck, Hollywood politics. But then something changed. A respected director he'd worked with before pulled him aside and whispered, "I don't know what you walked away from, but whatever it was scared the right people." That's when Keanu began to understand. This wasn't fallout from a rejected role. It was punishment. His career didn't collapse overnight. It faded slowly and silently. No scandals, no public blackballing, just silence. Calls stopped, projects disappeared. Collaborators who once reached out regularly went dark, he recalled. A black tie charity gala in Beverly Hills, star-studded cameras everywhere. He stood at the bar, alone, when a familiar face approached to an actress he trusted, someone he'd worked with before. She leaned in and whispered, "You said no, didn't you?" She smiled, walked away, said nothing else. It hit him that night with Diddy. That wasn't a dinner, it was a test, and he had failed. The trial would later reveal similar stories. Artists who'd been unknown suddenly became icons right after dining with Diddy. According to several witnesses, the meals led to mysterious success stories, but those who resisted, they vanished. Keanu began noticing a quiet pattern. Certain musicians and actors shot to fame overnight. Others, just as talented, were erased. One actor, famous for early 2000s action films, reportedly argued with Diddy's team. Then he disappeared from screens entirely. He didn't play the game, people whispered, and he paid for it. Keanu described Hollywood as a hall of mirrors, where directors weren't always in charge, where producers weren't the real power. Behind the scenes were gatekeepers, invisible, connected, and unchallengeable. One of the most disturbing examples Keanu cited involved a charity campaign he had helped launch. For months after that strange dinner, his name was scrubbed from the entire initiative. He received a short, cold email. The board has decided to move in a different direction. He would later learn the campaign had received a massive anonymous donation right before his removal. The new face, an actor tied to Diddy's inner circle. This wasn't a creative setback. It was systematic erasure. Another time, he was pitching a project in a studio meeting. Midway through, the executive took a call, stood up, and said, "We'll have to reschedule." They never did. No calls, no follow-up, nothing. In court, Keanu said, "This isn't blacklisting, this is deletion." Not loudly, but surgically, quietly, effectively. Then came the moment that silenced the courtroom. Keanu recalled what Diddy said at that dinner, a list of names dropped casually in conversation, not as gossip, but as warnings, disguised as compliments. He talked about musicians and actresses who rose fast and earned everything, all using cryptic phrases like baptized in legacy. She didn't ask questions. He stayed faithful. Keanu said he thought Diddy was joking, especially when he mentioned someone who got a trilogy because they went into the tub. But Diddy wasn't laughing. With a calm face, he looked at Keanu and said, "That's why they get it all, because they showed me their mind." Keanu refused to reveal all the names, but he confirmed. Some of the biggest stars in the world were discussed that night, he said. Diddy never accused directly, but implied, suggested, hinted enough to understand. The pattern was clear. Those who submitted were rewarded. Those who didn't were erased. "At first I didn't want to believe it," Keanu said, "but every time someone from that dinner exploded into stardom, it got harder to ignore." He mentioned one actor, now the lead in a massive superhero franchise. Diddy had reportedly said, "You wonder why he's wearing that suit? He's soaked." That's why it only took 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes for the entire courtroom to fall into stunned silence. Some jurors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others looked pale, shaken. They understood. This wasn't just disturbing. What Keanu Reeves was saying could shake the entire industry's foundation. The prosecution paused, allowing the gravity of the moment to sink in. Then came the follow-up question. Keanu answered with haunting finality. If it were just me, maybe I could have ignored it. But I know now, I wasn't the only one offered that deal. Among those who refused, I stood alone. What happened next felt less like a court case, and more like a scene out of a psychological thriller. Keanu revealed that weeks after that twisted dinner and the strange phone calls, another message came through. This time, it wasn't cloaked in Hollywood glamour, it came from a mutual acquaintance. If you want to understand the system, come see. The Vaulty was hesitant. He didn't know if this was another setup or some elaborate test. But curiosity pulled him in. Instead of a public meeting, he was escorted to what appeared to be a penthouse high above Beverly Hills. But this wasn't a home. It felt more like a surveillance nerve center. No windows, no personal decor. Only cold machinery humming in the background there. Diddy greeted him again, and this time, offered him a glimpse of what he called the insurance. Lining one side of the wall were drawers, each marked with names. Asterisk? Keanu didn't need to open them. Diddy just smiled and said, "Everyone's got leverage. I just keep mine organized." Then, with piercing calm, he added, "If you had gone into the bath, you'd have your drawer too." Keanu instantly understood. These weren't just files. They were collateral contracts, NDAs, secrets, and the names attached. Household names. Then came one final offer. "You don't even need to speak. Just be present. We'll record your silence." Keanu declined, politely but firmly. Diddy's reply, as the elevator doors closed, "Silence is loyalty." Keanu never forgot those words. He told the court this wasn't just about secrecy, it was about fear, about the power of silence in an industry built on illusion. He admitted there were moments when he nearly came forward, when rumors of other victims surfaced, when talented artists vanished from the spotlight overnight. But each time, he was stopped by subtle warnings, by panicked friends yelling, "Don't be the guy who exposes the club." Still, the breaking point came when he sat in that courtroom watching Cassie Ventura break down on the stand, listening to audio recordings, hearing stories of rituals eerily similar to his own. That's when he understood. This wasn't about him anymore. It never had been. He recalled one moment in 2020 when an actor he had worked with reached out. Diddy's legal troubles had just started. The actor confessed he'd been pulled into the same system, not by choice, but by exposure. "This is your chance," the message read. "If you speak, I'll back you." Keanu wanted to believe it, but he deleted the message. Not because he didn't trust the sender, but because fear still held him back. That changed when the court subpoena arrived. This wasn't about revenge, it was about release. About choosing integrity before retiring from the spotlight for good. By the time Keanu finished speaking, the courtroom no longer felt like a courtroom, it felt like a reckoning. Diddy's legal team, once smug and composed, sat frozen. The A-list supporters who had shown up in tailored suits and polished smiles had quietly vanished. And in their place, a silence so heavy, it felt like judgment itself. Diddy's attorneys tried objecting, calling Keanu's statements hearsay, but each time, they were overruled. That one juror stared unblinking at Reeves. Another scribbled furiously in their notepad, and one quietly wiped a tear. What Keanu had done was more than testify. He had indicted an entire system, not with evidence, alone, but with truth delivered without rage, without tears. Only resolve. As he stepped down, Keanu turned to Diddy, whose jaw was clenched. Eyes lowered. Then came the final words, soft but cutting like a blade. "I'd rather disappear in peace than be remembered for bathing in your water." A pet collective shiver ran through the room. The meaning was clear. Legacy isn't worth the stain. Moments later, the judge called for a break, but the courtroom remained electric. Reporters swarmed the hallways. Sketch artists rushed to capture the moment. Even Diddy's legal team looked haunted, because Keanu didn't just testify. He confirmed every rumor the industry had whispered for years, and he did it without blinking.